Hey guys, today we're going to look at an ancient temple called Shikanadar Temple located in a remote village called Kudumiyanmalai. This temple is referred to as the unsolved puzzle by experts because of its completely unexplainable and unrelated carvings. Today, I'm going to try to solve this puzzle, and I want you to join me in understanding what the ancient builders were doing. Some have claimed that this temple is showing twin carvings. For example, there are two apes who are identical placed opposite to one another. There are two identical warriors placed in front of one another. You can see two beauties in the same way and see many other carvings in the same fashion. However, the theory that this temple is made of a bunch of twin carvings is also not accepted because in other places there are non-identical carvings. You can see carvings like these opposite to one another, and they're not identical carvings and they don't even look similar. If we look at the carvings side by side, it gets even more confusing. For example, when we enter this 100-pillar hall, on the right side, you can see this beautiful six-headed god called Kartikeya sitting on a peacock. But right next to that, you can see Narasimha, a lion-headed deity, killing a demon. There's no connection at all between the first carving and the second carving. And if you look on the left side, you can see a similar problem. There is the elephant god Ganesha, and right next to him, you can see this fantastic carving of a 10-headed figure called Ravana. And these figures are not connected. At least most people think that way. And you can go on and on. For example, there is no connection between Ravana and this female deity. So this random array of completely disconnected gods is never seen in any Hindu temple. Not just in ancient temples. Even when they build new temples today, they still follow a pattern of connectivity between adjacent carvings. I mean, you should be able to see them like you see the consecutive scenes of a movie. They don't just throw a bunch of carvings here and there. There has to be a rhyme and reason. And because of this complete disconnect in this temple, experts and even pilgrims just don't come here. I mean, it is human tendency to ignore things you don't understand. Even worse, some people have dismissed these carvings as the work of pure madness. But it's not the fault of ancient builders. It is our fault because we're not looking carefully and we're simply not as smart as them. But let's try to get into the mind of the architect. Let's experiment. If you enter this part of the temple, let's say the first deity you look at is this one, the elephant god Ganesha. But then you're supposed to look on the opposite side. This is his brother. This god on the peacock is the brother of Ganesha. This is the connectivity. This is how the carvings are arranged, opposite to one another. I'm sure some experts have noticed this pattern, but when they look at these two carvings, maybe they dismissed this theory. Here, you can see the 10-headed demon called Ravana, and on the opposite side, we can see the lion-headed god, an avatar of Lord Vishnu. What is the connection between them? Most experts haven't read all the ancient Indian texts, so they cannot see any connection between these two carvings. They're comparing a demon to an avatar of God Vishnu. Who is the most powerful between the two? And more importantly, is there a connection between the two? The connecting factor is this demon. His name is Hiranyakashipu, who's getting killed by Lord Vishnu. It is mentioned in ancient texts that Ravana tried to lift the earring worn by this demon, and he could not do it. Ravana could not even lift the earring of this demon, and this demon is being destroyed effortlessly by Lord Vishnu. So these carvings are placed opposite to one another to tell us how large and powerful Lord Vishnu is when compared to the demon Ravana. Even though both these statues are carved the same size, it is merely an illusion, like how we see the sun and moon of the same size, even though the sun is much, much larger than the moon. Okay, so if this temple is a video game, you don't play like this. You don't see the carvings side by side. You play in a zigzag fashion, right? No. There's another rule we haven't learned. Let's go take a look at the carvings in a different area. Here, you can see this carving. Can you identify this deity? He's half human, half turtle. You can see the shape of the turtle shell at the bottom. And right next to him, you can see this god. Who is this? This figure is half human and half boar. Look at his face. He looks like a boar. They're seemingly unrelated. I'll tell you how you have to see them. You have to see them like this. As soon as you enter the hall, first you turn to the right side. You can see this carving that is half man, half fish. This is the very first avatar of Lord Vishnu. Now turn to the opposite side and you can see the half turtle god. This is the second avatar of Lord Vishnu. But then you should not go across in a zigzag fashion. You should see the one right next to it. This is the third avatar who's half boar. And then you should look opposite to the boar. This is the half lion form, which is the fourth avatar. And then don't go to the opposite side. See next to him and you can see this little man called Vamana, who's the fifth avatar. So we're not supposed to play this game in a zigzag fashion. We're supposed to play it like the retro Nokia Snake game. In this fashion, I have analyzed hundreds of ancient temples and I've never seen this idea of placing these carvings in this snake-like pattern. And because of this weird pattern, both experts and regular visitors have not understood most of the carvings in this temple and their connectivity to one another. So people just don't visit this temple simply because they don't understand the pattern hidden here. By the way, if you're not a Hindu and if you're completely lost by these avatars, the easy way to remember the order of Vishnu's avatars is Darwin's evolution. First, our planet was dominated by fish. Next, there were amphibians. Then there were rodents. And after that, we had the big cats. And then the world was dominated by various human-like species. The 10 avatars of ancient Indian texts is remarkably similar to the theory of evolution. So now we know as we walk around the temple, we are supposed to look at the carvings in a snake-like serpentine fashion. I'm not going to bore you with how every carving is connected to one another. Our YouTube community is very smart and can answer most of the questions. But now, because I have discovered this pattern, it completely changes our understanding of these carvings. Because until now, people think many of these carvings are just two identical carvings. Look at this carving on one side and this carving on the opposite side. What do you think? Can you see any difference between the two? you can easily dismiss them as the same deity. But since ancient builders arranged a pattern of continuity, they cannot be the same deity. So let's look closer. Look at his hands. This guy has weapons in his hands. But look at this guy. Unfortunately, all of his hands are cut off except this one. But he's not holding a weapon. He's holding a lamp. And you can even see the tiny fire glowing here. The fire is the key. Look at the hairdo on him. His hair looks like fire, like flames, right? Who is he? He is the ancient Super Saiyan. This figure is called Agni Virabhadra. Agni means fire in Sanskrit. So he is the warrior of fire who burns his enemies to death. So who is this guy on the opposite side? Look at this hand, how he's stylishly pulling out an arrow from the quiver at the back. He's just using 2 fingers to pull out the arrow without even turning his head. This god is so stylish that even his hairpins are shaped like lingams. You can see multiple lingam-shaped hairpins. But the key detail is in his clothes. See here, you can see the human skulls on his clothes. The people who use skulls in rituals are called Aghoris. So we can identify this warrior as Aghora Virabhadra, the warrior who decapitates his enemies and keeps their skulls as trophies. By the way, if you're not a Hindu and if you've sat through this and understood this, you should pat yourself on the back because I've just taught you some very advanced Indic iconography. In a similar fashion, we can now decode these 2 apes also. And you can see the ape's body hair on the statue. It's remarkable how they achieved these curves on solid granite. It still remains a mystery. But these figures are not identical. They do have some differences. They're actually brothers by the names of Vali and Sugriv mentioned in ancient Indian texts. But some figures facing each other don't look similar to each other at all. But because we know that opposite carvings are connected, we can now unravel some interesting stories. Here you can see this mother goddess, Parvati. Parvati is normally supposed to look beautiful and nice, but here she's actually angry, and you can see her eyes popping out and her fangs are coming out. Why? Let's look at the opposite side. Who is he and what is he doing? He's her husband, Lord Shiva, and he has lifted up one of his legs. And look carefully, there's an earring in one ear, but on the other ear, there's no ring. Believe it or not, this missing earring is helping us crack the case. There was once a dance competition between Shiva and his wife. The competition began and other gods started gathering to watch this. Shiva is known as the greatest dancer, the cosmic dancer of the universe. But surprisingly, his wife was able to do every move he made. The crowd started to become bigger and bigger to watch this spectacle. He tried some of the complex moves, but to his surprise, she was able to do all of them. Unable to defeat her, Shiva played a dirty move. He dropped one of his earrings on the ground, but he did not bend down to pick it up with his hand. Instead, he picked it up with his toes of the right leg and then put it back in his ear without using his hands. Now, was his wife capable of doing such a move? According to ancient texts, she was flexible enough to do it, but due to her modesty, she did not lift her leg, afraid to reveal her body in front of everybody. And this carving captures it perfectly. See how she's looking down as a defeated person. That's why she's angry at Lord Shiva. She has lost the competition, but it was unfair. So you can see that we're now literally able to dissect each and every carving because we have understood how ancient builders have arranged the carvings in this temple. I will admit that it is a very strange thought process to expect a visitor to go in a snake-like fashion to understand these carvings. But once we understand this and follow this, it's just pure magic. Now we can understand all these figures, who they are, and what they're doing, and how every carving is a piece of this giant story. It used to be an unsolved puzzle, but now we have cracked the code. I'm not going to show you all the carvings and how they're connected to one another. That video can go on for 10 hours, So I hope this video was of some value to you, and I hope it helped you understand the thought process of ancient builders. I'm Praveen Mohan. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.